Hello everyone, it's Clayton again, and before I begin, I must say, it's rather odd for this one to be the Christmas episode when we're 1 week away from Halloween. I don't know if that was because of a scheduling issue or what, but whatever happens. Let's just get to the episode itself. So this episode, Hearthbreakers, is actually a very interesting episode because it's the first time we get to hear about Hearth's Warming Eve since the actual Hearth's Warming Eve episode back in Season 2. And when I saw that episode, when it was written by Meriwether Williams, I was skeptical because I previously saw Meriwether Williams' other disaster opus, known as Mysterious Ne'er-Do-Well. And don't worry, I don't think Hearth's Warming Eve is another disaster opus for her. In fact, I think for what it was an improvement on Meriwether's other episode. And it did have an interesting history about Hearth's Warming Eve, and it even provided for some good comedy with the history, with the main six acting out the various personalities who made Hearth's Warming Eve, like Pinkie Pie as Chancellor Puddinghead, and Rainbow Dash as Commander Hurricane, and Rarity as Princess Platinum. I liked that. It wasn't my favorite holiday episode of the bunch, that would be Luna Eclipsed, but for a Christmas episode, it did its job fairly well. And when it comes to Hearthbreakers, it does another Hearth's Warming Eve Christmas episode, but it does it in a very different way. Many of you might recall one of my favorite Season 4 episodes, Pinkie Apple Pie, when Applejack and Pinkie Pie might be cousins, and it was never really said if they were cousins or not in that episode. Well, this is an episode that establishes more between the Pinkie Pie family and the Apple family. As Pinkie Pie's family and Applejack's family go to Pinkie Pie's rock farm in order to celebrate Hearth's Warming Eve together, only to figure out that Pinkie Pie's family's traditions are a little strange. Now, I don't know if Pinkie's family is based on Puritan culture or Amish culture. Maybe you can tell me in the comments, but yeah, it was rather strange seeing these characters who, for the most part, were pretty dang silent in ways that, throughout the series, that I really did not expect most of these jokes to occur. Nick Confalone wrote this episode, and even though I really disliked Princess Spike, this is an improvement over his last episode. His comedy seems a lot better, and even though the episode's kind of mean-spirited, it's justified in this sense, because we never learned that much about the Pinkie family, so his characterization of them seemed appropriate. Plus, the only really mean-spirited one was Limestone Pie, but then again, that was identifiable. Holder's Boulder in the episode was very important to her because the Pinkie's family's traditions were made years and years ago. A couple of interesting points about this episode are that Ingrid Nielsen does come back to play Maud Pie, and she provides some great comedy, of course, with her... How should I say this? She does great comedy with her monotone voice and her anti-jokes, most of which involving rocks, and I must say, the writers really seem to know their thing about geology. I took geology a little bit when I was in high school, and when it comes to the rocks that they use, like limestone, igneous, obsidian, and all those other rock types, they're actually pretty accurate with their real-world descriptions and real-world designs. So, maybe Maud Pie will be a great geologist when she gets a little older. Who knows? And Ingrid Nielsen doesn't just play Maud Pie, but also Limestone Pie and Pinkie's adorable sister, Marble Pie. That is what I call versatility. Not only that, but Peter New does a great job in the episode, not only as Big Macintosh, but also as Igneous Rock, who's Pinkie's father. And another thing that I'll say about this episode is the fact that one of my only problems is that a couple of the jokes felt a little mean-spirited, and the story is pretty traditional. I mean, you've seen this type of story 100 times, especially in made-for-TV Christmas specials. The two families meet, there's some misunderstandings, they don't really like each other at first. One family gets fed up and leaves, but then they come back, and then everything's all great again once they find out that they can bring their traditions together. It's not a bad idea, it's just an idea that I've seen in a bunch of other Christmas specials. And usually My Little Pony does a good job subverting those usual ideas, whereas this one plays the Christmas special type plot pretty straight. Or as straight as it can be with talking ponies, of course. So Nick Confalone, I will say that he's probably not as talented when it comes to his writing as some of my favorite writers like M.A. Larson, Megan McCarthy, Cindy Morrow, and Amy Keating-Rogers. But let's be fair to him. He's sticking to what he knows, and in this episode, despite the fact that it's cliche, and despite the fact that the story's been done a million times before, he did it in a way that was still pretty entertaining. There were still some funny jokes every now and then, and it was nice to learn a little bit more about Pinky's history. And I definitely enjoyed Ingrid Nilsson's performances as all three of Pinkie Pie's sisters. So, I will say this episode wasn't a complete bust. It's just, when you compare it to some of the other episodes of this season, especially the last two that came out, which were both incredibly surprising, this episode is just serviceable in comparison. And if you don't mind, I actually kind of prefer Hearthwarming Eve to Hearthbreakers. It's a good episode, it's just very traditional in the sense that it doesn't leave that many surprises. I give Hearthbreakers a 7 out of 10. See you guys next week.